Hello and welcome to another edition, episode 3 of The Derek Show, the show where I, Derek, talk until I am out of breath. As usual, this show is inspired by Tim Dillon, who is one of my favorite comedians in the world right now, and also one of my favorite bombasts and iconoclasts. That's a great word, bombast. I really like Tim Dillon. He's hilarious. If you haven't seen his stand-up, I recommend you check it out. There's like a 20-minute Comedy Central thing, which is hilarious, and then they've also clipped my favorite part of it, which is the last 6 minutes. It's all about ice cream, and who doesn't like some good ice cream? There's another video about that, but definitely listen to him talk sometime if you like angry Northeasterners like me. So I'm glad that you guys are here, and I'm enjoying doing this because I feel not only lighter and more energized when I get done doing it, but also as if I'm getting direct to you, the consumer, whoever you are. But personal friends of mine who've been watching and have come up and said so and told me so, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that you're enjoying it. I'm going to continue doing this and talking until there's a good reason not to. Or, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll just drop dead one day. We'll find out. You'll notice as I read through these news articles that I'm very critical, oftentimes unjustly, but it's my show, about things. And today you will find me in an especially critical mood, because I hosted a comedy show last night, which was tons of fun. A lot of people had a great time. I felt myself doing like naturally Trump expressions. Yeah. It was tons of fun. We found ourselves having a great time. It was the best show. It was the best show in the world. It's a really bummer you missed it because there'll never be anything like it again. It was lots of fun, but also I had been super stressed out the whole day, and so whenever I got stressed out, I started stuttering. It's one of the manifestations of what I got, and I was, and at the end of the show, there was this one lady, who, like, as she was going up and through, like, I told her, I can't remember why or how I told her, but I think I said so because I wasn't sure if she was enjoying the show, but I noticed this behavior where, like, she would turn around she was in the front row, turn around to her friends like this, be talking to them really loud, and I could, like, hear her from up on the balcony, and I said, like, oh, I said, oh, it was something like, oh, you shouldn't talk so loud during the show or something. She was like so surprised and then offended, and then she said, like, well, I'm so embarrassed. And I told her, no, it's nothing to be embarrassed about. If you didn't know the etiquette, it's fine. But dumbass, almost middle-aged white bitches need to make some kind of fucking scene about everything or make a story that isn't there. Well, if you're a dumbass middle-aged white bitch, I apologize to the dumbass middle-aged white bitch community and all of its members who seem to, who all right, whatever. You'll find me especially critical. Today's episode will be a little bit of a shorter one than usual because I am going on a quick little kind of road trip with a friend, which I'm excited about. So I get to do this, get all of my anger, venom, piss and vinegar, and vitriol out, and then just have a great day. So I hope that you find it cathartic. Actually, I don't give a goddamn fuck if you find this cathartic or not to listen to. This is for me. Take this how you will. All right, I think I have bullshitted enough. It's time to get to these news stories, and this is one that I'm pretty excited to get into. We read a couple last episode about cicadas and these cicada emergences which are occurring all over the U.S. These enormous broods with their hive minds that wake up every 13 or 17 years. There are these two different clocks, cycles that these cicadas are on, and I think the reason being, I think they are on different prime numbers of years in their emergence, so that they won't have to wake up at the same time and compete for resources. Although, generally speaking, the broods are in separate geographical locations. There's a part of southern Illinois that the article said central Illinois. It looked like southern Illinois on the map to me. But there's a part where they both overlap. So, yeah, maybe that has something to do with it. But they're very interesting creatures. I won't be putting a picture of them like really big on the thumbnail because I think that'll gross people out. But yeah, they're really cool, and we had tons of fun last episode reading some of these articles about these guys, and I have yet another article, once again by Seth Borenstein. So thank you, Seth Borenstein, for writing the content that we will be whatever. I just didn't want to suggest that this show is derivative of Associated Press news articles, but in a sense it is. But here, we're just going to have fun. All right, so this article, cicadas are nature's weirdos. They pee stronger than us, and an STD can turn them into zombies. All right, interesting. Good hook. Got my attention. I am wondering why this article is so very anthropocentric. Already, it's just the title, but they pee stronger than us. I mean, I guess that's interesting. It's a factoid. But then also, do you mean? You mean in terms of water pressure? Sure. They have exoskeletons. If there was an exoskeleton on my penis, I bet that it could jet water out a lot faster without exploding. So, kind of makes sense. But then also, what's the reason? What's the reason to reference the comparative water pressure of a human and a bug? All right. Let's find out what Seth has to say. The periodical cicadas that are about to infest 2 parts of the United States aren't just plentiful, they're downright weird. All right. Also, okay, cool. And he linked in that first sentence to the article that we just read, which was a lot of fun. But these insects are the strongest urinators in the animal kingdom. I'm skeptical. What if we haven't measured the water pressure of every plant I guess plants don't urinate, of every animal that we've discovered? We may not have measured every bug and mammals and birds and aquatic creatures and crustaceans and ichthyoids water pressure. It seems like it would be difficult to find out just how strong a herring urinates, because it is urinating into the same medium that the urine it consists of. It's peeing in water, and pee is mostly water. Yeah, you could measure it. I don't think that this is it might be. This could be a credible claim in terms of current record keeping, but then also, what if people in other countries, say like scientists in Russia, did all kinds of research about animals years ago, back when the USSR was cut off from the rest of the world and they were hoarding all their own scientific knowledge. They were figuring shit out about animals. And they found out that the buck-toothed blowfly actually pees stronger than these cicadas. Yeah, I am on one today. We're in the second paragraph. Hell yeah. Okay, but however, it is possible that this claim is factually correct, but we also don't know if all of human record keeping is shared. As a matter of fact, and the reason why I brought the Russian thing up is that when I was in college at UCSB, I would often talk with like physics graduate students, especially physics graduate students, because there was this Institute for Advanced Physics Studies at UCSB that would bring in all kinds of international students, so I could have all kinds of interesting chats. And I was talking with these two guys over at Freebird's Burritos. Shout out OG Freebirds, Isla Vista, California. We were chatting, having burritos, nachos, stuff like that. And they were talking about this phenomenon in the academic physics community that at every conference that one could go to, if you're a physicist and you're showing up to exchange ideas with other physicists, there would be at least one lecture where at some point in that lecture, an old withered 60, 70, no, it'd have to be like 70, 80-year-old Russian guy would stand up in the middle of the conference while the guy's giving his presentation and say, "This result was proven in Russia in 1960. Because there was all of this independent research done by the Russians, where they weren't sharing it with the rest of the world. We're like, okay, because there was a whole space race and the nuclear research and everything. And so there's a lot of documents from back then, and it wasn't translated in any other language, because they're like, well, we don't need to give it to anyone else. It's in Russian, and we paid for it, and so we're going to keep it like this. But I don't know if that's an amusing story to you. I sure found it funny at the time. I'm not a very good storyteller, but by gum, I can be critical of a news article. So let's get back to this. Find out what the fuck these cicadas are up to. Okay. Oh my god. These insects are the strongest urinators in the animal kingdom, with flows that put humans and elephants to shame. Did you mention elephants because they're big, and the bigger the animal, for some reason you think there's a correlation in people's minds that it would have high water pressure? If that's the case, Seth Borenstein, if that is your name, I am disappointed. Oh. The humans and elephants. All right. Why those two examples? I mean, yeah, I get it, because we are humans, that you would. And elephants, where does that even come from? Moving on. They have pumps in their heads that pull moisture from the roots of trees, allowing them to feed for more than a decade underground. All right, yeah, and then they are rescuers of caterpillars. Period. End of paragraph. That really felt like non sequiturs. All right, he's giving examples, right? This initial one sentence paragraph. They're just infesting the United States. They're not just plentiful. They're downright weird. You give 3 examples, but it just feels clumsy. Now, I have been very critical of the grammatical of Seth Borenstein's grammar and writing style and choice of examples and other things in the past, which you can find out. Episode 2 is that one. Yes, but this one, it doesn't really matter. I'm just angry. It did feel sort of like a non sequitur, but whatever. There's all right, interesting shit on the way. And they are being ravaged by a all right, it's not, like, it's not as if all these things are not completely without interest, but the stylistic choices of how to put the goddamn words together and space them out is an atrocity, I tell you. If you think bad things are happening in Gaza Strip, take a look at this news article. All right, and they are being ravaged by a sexually transmitted disease that turns them into zombies. That in its separate paragraph. Okay, spacing for emphasis, I guess, but I really don't like the way this guy writes, but I enjoy a lot of the content that he writes about. I enjoy a lot of the subject. I have been entertained, and maybe, I'm entertaining myself about how much I dislike it right now, so that's fine. Oh, Jesus Christ. All right, now we have a few different sections to go through, and some of this was going to be more or less repeated because we talked last time about how they have these pumps in their head, or we read last time they got these pumps in their head, and they like bore underground, and then they sort of like latch onto the roots of trees in their little burrows, and then they just like bury their head partly into the root of a tree and just suck on the xylem. I guess while they're like, I don't know if you would call it hibernating, while they're dormant for these 13 or 17 years. Yeah, and they just suck water out of the tube systems in trees. That's what the xylem is. It runs through the middle of the roots up into the trunk, and that is the system that feeds different parts of the tree water and nutrients that the tree gets from the soil and the air. Okay. All right, pumps in the head. Part 1. Inside trees are sugary. Are outside trees not sugary? Are you telling me that... All right, I think you guys get it. Yeah. Are you telling me that outside trees aren't sweet? Well, Nanette is in the yard and has been there for 50 years. She shades the house, and she is a sweetheart. You apologize, Seth Borenstein. All right, never mind. Okay, inside trees, the inside of trees are sugary. We're just gonna edit that of in there. The inside of trees are sugary. Nutrient-heavy saps that flow through tissue called phloem. Most insects love the sap, but not cicadas. They go for tissue called xylem, which carries mostly water and a bit of nutrients. And in a video that I watched after I recorded last episode, this one bug doctor, this one cicada scientist, was talking about how like the water is like they get out of the trees like 95% water, and that they'll be peeing out most of the moisture, and they'll also extract as a bunch of nutrients from this mostly water mixture. And then also the cicadas will be just like covering trees, and then as you walk through an area where the cicadas are just like covering the trees, there'll be this kind of like a mist coming down from the trees, and you will walk through it not knowing necessarily that you are walking through a cloud of bug piss. And not to worry, so said the man, that because cicadas get mostly water and they extract what few nutrients there are, then basically they're just peeing water on you. So you can imagine, if you will, while you walk through such a cloud, that you are just getting nature's What are those fans with the sprinklers and they blow the thing? Yeah, we'll just consider them nature's one of that. Let's keep going. All right. It's not easy to get into the xylem. Yeah, so it's like protected on the inside of the roots, and the phloem. Yeah, those are like the big, the big nutrient superhighways in the middle of a tree. It's not easy to get into the xylem, which doesn't just flow out when the bug taps into it because it's under negative pressure. Yeah, the pressure in the xylem is less than it is outside. And so they have to have this suction power. I mean, I don't know if like the head like expands and contracts while they. I don't know what I don't know what it sounds like. Nobody knows what it sounds like. This is what the scientists need to be finding out. All right, yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it looks like, or sounds like, but they suck the water out of trees. The cicada can get the fluid because it's outsized head. It's outsized head. I think you might mean oversized. Seth Borenstein, if you can write articles for the Associated Press and do such an awful job, I could do that too. What am I doing here? Holy shit. Outsized head is a pump. Oh no, I'm editing it in. I'm saying oversized. I'm not saying all the words that this guy wrote down because while I enjoy what he writes about and many of the factoids that he delivers, I dislike the writing intensely. The cicada can get fluid because its oversized head has a pump, said the University of Alabama Huntsville entomologist Carrie Deans. They use their proboscis like a tiny straw, about the width of a hair, with the pump sucking out the liquid, says Georgia Tech biophysicist Professor Saad Bamla, who I think is the guy in the video who told the story about clouds of piss coming down from trees. Oh, this is lovely. They spend nearly their entire lives drinking. I know a few people who fit that description year after year. It's a hard way to make a living, Dean said. Well, how do you know? Are you a cicada? Have you done it? Have you sucked on a root recently? Going with the flow. All that watery fluid has to come out the other end, and boy, does it. Oh, yes, I am back on your side, Seth Borenstein. An excellent turn of phrase. It's stupendous economy of words. And, well, let's keep going. Bamla, way to go, Seth. Way to go. You really stuck the landing on that one. Bamla in March published a study of the urination flow rates of animals across the... it's interesting. It's interesting. We're gonna answer some of the earlier questions, possibly. Let's find out. Animals across the world. Cicadas were clearly king. But also it doesn't say how many animals, how many species were measured. But peeing 2 to 3 times stronger and faster than elephants and humans. Did you just measure the 3? You're mentioning, yeah, okay. Who gives a shit? Also 2 to 3 times? That's not so impressive. I heard a guy urinating today in the bathroom. It sounded like his dick hole was the size of a garden hose. All right. But that also doesn't imply pressure. Yeah. He couldn't look at the periodical cicadas that mostly feed and pee underground, but he used video to record and measure the flow rates of their Amazon cousins, which topped out around 10 feet per... Well, guess what? He can measure their piss pressure now. Why are we getting this information when he could be currently checking out a cicada's dick hole? Okay, which topped out around 10 feet per second, 3 meters per second. Okay, so in a related species, this is full of misleading information. Seth, I'm on the fence about you again. They have a muscle that pushes the waste through a tiny hole like a jet, Baumla said. He said he learned this when in the Amazon. He happened on a tree the locals called a weeping tree because liquid was floating down. Here's that phenomenon I told you about. Like the plant was crying. It was cicada pee. You walk around in a forest where they're actually chorusing on a hot sunny day. It feels like it's raining, said University of Connecticut entomologist John Cooley. That's their honeydew, or waste product, coming out of the back end. It's called cicada rain. You know what? I'd let a cicada pee on me. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily seek it out, wouldn't necessarily enjoy it uncommonly much, although if it was a hot day and just it's misting, I'd walk through it. Good for caterpillars. All right. In the years and areas where cicadas come out, caterpillars enjoy a cicada reprieve. University of Maryland entomologist Dan Gruner. That is a new name to us. All 3 entomologists mentioned so far were mentioned in the last article. Finally, a fresh voice on this pressing national issue. Dan Gruner studied caterpillars after the 2021 cicada emergence in the mid-Atlantic. He found that the bugs that turn into moths survived the spring in bigger numbers because the birds that usually eat them were too busy getting cicadas. He found the bugs that turn into moths survive. Okay, so they're not called caterpillars, but there's something. Actually, yeah, like moth larvae, they look gross. I don't know if you've ever seen one, and they're like silverfish, and sort of, and like how brittle they are. Oh man, it's disgusting. And ugh. All right. I mean, butterflies look pretty freaky if you look at them up close. As a matter of fact, I mean, if most of the little girls who are enchanted by butterflies got one of them shits under a magnifying glass, I think they might change their tune. Sad stuff. It's really sad stuff. Okay. He found that the bugs that turned into moths survived the spring in bigger numbers because the birds that usually eat them were too busy eating cicadas. All right, yeah, so they're a nice juicy snack. You know, they're supporting the local community, giving their lives, just like Jesus. You know what? Cicadas and other prey animals, they are just like Jesus. They give their lives so that the rest of the world can carry on doing its thing. We salute you. All right. Periodical cicadas are lazy, fat, and slow, Gruner said. Rude. Speaking of rude, and the reason why I brought up the lady who was talking to the comedy show is like, well, after, and I was stuttering when I was sort of saying, well, it's not a big deal that, like, I told you were being rude. Well, you actually were being rude. What do you want from me? It's not a big deal, but, like, you should know this etiquette if you want to keep going to comedy shows. And then they were, and I was stuttering, and then they sort of started making fun of me while I was stuttering, and then, and then I was like, I started getting angry, like, what's your problem? Like, I've been dealing with the death of my father recently, and I'm under all this stress, and people are, and they started laughing at me, and I'm like, fuck you, bitches. I'm like, I'm out. I'm not talking to you anymore. I wanted to say that because that was real asshole behavior on their part. I hope that this is allowed to be on YouTube. I've been very uncensored today, but also this has been a pretty entertaining half hour, I think, and there's a little bit more to get through, and I hope I don't get too sidetracked, but you never know. And also, it's my show, and I'm talking till I'm out of breath. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Periodical cicadas, fat leaves, and so they're, Gruner said, they're extraordinarily easy to capture for us and for their predators. All right, cool. They're like, well, they're gone most of the time, and then they just like come out in these enormous swarms. It seems like numbers is their strategy to prevent themselves from being extinct. But what an abundance of bugs when you get them. All right. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for. Zombie cicadas. There's a deadly sexually transmitted disease, a fungus that turns cicadas. That is so interesting. A fungal STD for an insect? Oh, I like the world is cool. I like science, man. That turns cicadas into zombies and causes their private parts to fall off, Cooley said. Wow, it attacks reproduction to the point that a dick collapses off of the corpse. There's a better way to say that, but we'll keep on going. Private parts fall off, Cooley said. It's a real problem that is even stranger than science fiction, Cooley said. This is a sexually transmitted zombie disease. Now, what I'm wondering is how that works. I mean, does the fungus grow all over their nervous system and like shut down the nervous system and then animate the nervous system with the little electrical impulses that it would normally use to communicate within the fungus? But then it's just like poking things, poking things with little shocks and experimenting with how the fucking thing moves, and then it animates it. It moves it around to promote the fungus's goals, so the fungus can spread spores on other cicadas. Is that how it does it? Is this fungus pickle ricking a bunch of cicadas? I have to know. Cooley said, this is a sexually transmitted zombie disease. All right, Cooley said that areas in the Midwest where up to 10% of the individuals were infected. Cooley has seen areas in the Midwest where up to 10% of the individuals were infected. All right, still information. Tell me about this. The fungus is also the type that has hallucinatory effects on birds that would eat them. So, birds are eating zombified, sexually ruined cicadas and then tripping their nuts off. Oh, I really like the world. This is great. Thank you, Seth Borenstein, for bringing us this high quality information. Oh, this white fungus takes over the male. Their gonads are torn from their body, and chalky spores are... I'm sorry. This is too much so far. This white fungus takes over the male. Their gonads are torn from their body. And I don't know if fungi are really capable of tearing gonads off. Do they fall off torn? But also, what a turn of phrase. What a sequence of words. Never before have I read or heard or thought the words, their gonads are torn from their body. And what a fun word gonad is too. Okay. And chalky spores are spread around to nearby other cicadas. Oh, does that happen when the gonads are torn off their body? And it's like poof. There's like so I mean, it's possible that the fungus appropriates like specifically the cicada's nutsack as the spore transmissions. Like, no, you're not gonna be able to squirt your sperm or whatever the fuck you call cicada jizz. Instead, it's just gonna be chalky spores. The insects are sterilized, not killed. This way, the fungus causes the cicada to spread to others. Okay, so it's not as if they're truly zombified. Their agency is controlling them. They're not being pickle ricked, but they're just infected, sterilized, and then just like, hey buddy, how's it going? And they're all like, no, get the fuck away from us. He's like, I don't know. What's wrong? Why don't you want to hang out with me? It's like, you don't have a nutsack. It's like, well, you shouldn't discriminate against the disabled. Here, listen. and then they all get it. They're completely at the mercy of the fungus, Cooley said. They're walking dead. That seems like a rude thing to call anything that has lost the ability to reproduce. The walking dead. Are you going to call a human eunuch the walking dead just because it can't make more kids? Just because his balls are gone or she's had an ovarectomy? Some goddamn thing like that. Well, guys, I think I have run out of anger and passion of that kind. So thank you very much for going through this article with me. I've got some more articles to go through that I was planning on going through today, but this cicada adventure turned out to be so riveting that we didn't need to do that. So I've got a few on the back burner for you later on, but right now it is time for me to sign off. This has been the Derek Show, where I, Derek, talk until I'm out of breath. Have a great day.